Hello and welcome to the Capital Games Podcast. I'm the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. You are one of the many amongst us, well, it's only two of us, so we're not many, we're just a few. You are the only one here that has decided to play a new game this week, and I think it is within our duties to talk about the games that are recent releases that you are playing. So go ahead. What have you been playing this week?
I've been playing Harvestella, Square Enix's little JRPG and farming game. I will say this, the game is probably going to be a solid 7 if we're going on the 10-point scale. So combat is a little bit brainless. I mean, yeah, you've got classes you can change from and stuff, which kind of helps you kind of mitigate some situations and stuff like that. But combat's kind of brainless. Just avoid the AoEs, make sure you've got healing items, and just be smart about combat. So combat's not much to write home about. The farming piece is a little bit bare basic. It's not better than Rune Factory 4, but it's not worse than Rune Factory 4. It's just kind of right in the middle.
Okay.
So farming's not all there. What is there for this game is the art design is fantastic. Just playing this game in 4K Ultra, God, it just makes the art shine in this game. And then the music is just really damn good. Just we're talking a full orchestra soundtrack and everything. Just really, really great music all around. But there's one zone in the beginning that just has this great tune that sort of sets the tone for like an open kind of valley sort of environment, and it's got like dramatic French horns and strings and organ in it. It just makes that area just seem so huge. And then one of the other dungeons later on has a very, very haunting and ethereal soundtrack with like a choir in the background too. And it's just nothing short of amazing. And it just kind of brings the feel of the environment together. And those are really the high points of the game. Story's kind of predictable, but I mean, I really wasn't expecting to be wowed by the story anyhow, seeing that this was kind of considered a smaller studio game from Square Enix. But overall, Harvestella is fun. If you're kind of got the completionist mentality, you're gonna probably end up wanting to craft all the things, build all the items, farm all the animals and everything. So there's lots to do and everything. People who are experienced with farming games will probably be annoyed by the first chapter because the game really handholds you in the first chapter, making sure you know how to do all the farming stuff and everything. And it isn't until the second chapter that they finally drop the reins off of you and just let you go completely fucking wild.
So you mentioned that the aesthetic choices were actually very good. The music, the visuals are very good. Do you feel the gameplay is more of a stepping stone to maybe a sequel improving that, or were there things in the gameplay that needed obvious work?
I think personally the farming piece, there could be some quality of life improvements, and I know that the team behind Harvestella have been really observant to feedback and everything, because when the initial demo for Harvestella came out on Switch, people griped to high hell about everything that they didn't like, and they were able to basically just kind of gather the most common complaints and then address the complaints with the fixes in the day one patch. So a lot of the complaints that people had have actually been addressed in the day one patch. But I still feel that there could be some things to be improved on. If they are planning to make this into a full-blown series, then I want to say I think I would be hopeful that they can probably iterate further and maybe make a better sequel. But honestly, I don't know how the game is going to wrap up, since I honestly have no clue how far I am from the ending.
Okay.
So, yeah, depending on how the story closes up when I get to the ending, then I'd probably be able to definitively say for sure whether or not there might be kind of a window for a sequel or not.
I don't know. Okay, so maybe you don't know the answer to this, but is this going to be something along the lines of how Stardew Valley was, where they just kept perpetually updating the game? Is there a chance for that, or is this definitely a game where once you've played it, you've beaten it, and then that's it? You've played the game, period.
That is a good question. I honestly can't say if there is just kind of like a infinite post game section sort of thing,
Okay.
kind of like what you would find in Stardew Valley and to another degree Rune Factory. So that'll be something I'll have to find out once I get to the end of the main story. Overall, just I would say it is a bit pricey at $60, and I can understand why some people would kind of balk at the price and go, "Oh God, $60." I'm not sure I want to drop that kind of money on it because,
Right.
yeah, it is quite a bit of cash. But if you're kind of a person who wants to get into something that's got a little bit of farming elements, but is more, I guess, more centered on the JRPG side of the equation, then it's not bad. And especially if you're playing on PC and have a PC that can run this game at 4K Ultra, then yeah, it's a fun, pretty looking JRPG with some farming elements. And $60, while pricey, it's a good looking game in my opinion, and would be a great sort of introduction into action JRPG with some farming elements. And then if you're kind of into the farming stuff more, then you can look into stuff like Story of Seasons and Stardew Valley afterwards. Or if you kind of want more on the whole fusion between both farming and dungeon crawling, then look into Rune Factory 4 after Harvestella. But that would be my thought. And if you're kind of maybe a little bit curious or a little bit on the fence, maybe wait for a sale. That would be my opinion on it.
Yeah, when I found out the game was $60, I kind of was like, nah, I don't know, I want to play that for $60, especially since most games, I think, what is it? Rune Factory 5 was 60, right? Or was it 60 or 50?
Initially when it released on Switch, it was $60, but I think on Steam right now it's $30.
Okay. Yeah. Stardew Valley has always been $30, and that's considered the gold standard of those types of games. So spending $60 on it for a game that I wasn't sure was going to be as good seemed way too steep for me on that one. But you did mention something on your last thing that you said, that it's a good introduction to those types of games. I guess that's really the question. Like, would you give that to somebody who's completely new to these types of games and say, try it out and see if you like it? Or would you rather them play Stardew Valley or Rune Factory? Or what would be the one that if someone is like kind of curious that they're interested in that type of game, what would be the one that you'd think would be a good one to start with?
I think for me, I would probably say Rune Factory 4. Harvestella is great for anyone who's kind of allergic to, quote, crap graphics, because I know Rune Factory 4 is technically a 3DS game that's been up-res to both Switch and PC. So it doesn't have like new and shiny and pretty models, and I know some people don't like the whole pixel art aesthetic that Stardew Valley has. So Harvestella, I think, would be great for anyone who does care about aesthetics and wants kind of like nice, shiny looking graphics and everything. Then yeah, Harvestella is great for that because it's just a really pretty game, in my opinion. Just the art team behind the game just did a smashing job on just making the game, or the characters, just look super pretty and everything.
Overall, you'd kind of recommend it, but maybe not for $60. Is that what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I would say the safest thing to do is check out the demo on Switch, because there is a demo out for Switch, and the demo has actually been recently updated to account for all the day one patch changes that the Square Enix team did for the game for the retail release. So the demo now includes all the quality of life changes that were made right before release for the day one patch. So it is technically one-to-one alike to the retail copy now. So play the demo on Switch, and then if you like it, then if you want just the absolute best visual fidelity, then just go for the PC one. if you value just the portability of the Switch, then you can get the full copy on Switch. And the cool thing about the game is that if you do decide to go with the full retail copy for Switch, then your save data from the demo does carry over to the retail copy.
Oh, good. That's not a bad feature, and that's been more common with Switch games recently for some games. That's right.
Yeah, it's been great to kind of see that sort of functionality for some of the games that are coming out with Switch demos, and then having that little fine detail of, hey, by the way, if you buy the game, then you won't lose all the progress that you put in on the demo. The progress from the demo will also transfer to your full retail copy.
Okay, that's good. So you recommend it for certain people, maybe not the price that it was that they are selling it for, maybe for a sale.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you're hesitant on it, then I would say just wait for a sale. Speaking of sales, I wanted to kind of highlight something real quick that Nintendo mentioned on their official website regarding Black Friday sales. So, for Black Friday, for anyone looking for Nintendo deals, Nintendo and some brick and mortar retailers will be selling a Nintendo Switch bundle with the blue and red Joy-Con pair, a copy of Mario Kart Deluxe, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and a 3-month Nintendo Online voucher for $300. So $70 in free goodies. And just a reminder that this is not the OLED model. So this is just the regular LCD panel model. So there's that. And then they will have the following games on sale for $40. So Mario Party Superstars, Breath of the Wild, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Link's Awakening, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, and Bravely Default 2. And then WarioWare Get It Together will be priced at $33, and Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain will be $20. And then if you've been hesitating on getting the Mario Kart Live Home Circuit augmented reality RC cars, they will be slashed down by $40, bringing them down to $60. So if you had wanted to get those to kind of set up Mario Kart in your living room or something, then the Black Friday deal brings them down to $60. So that gives you the remote control car and everything. So there's that. That was a really interesting little toy, but I was with a lot of people where the $100 price tag was a bit of a hard swallow. So.
Yeah.
And the news post that they put out also mentioned that they'll be working on some eShop deals, but they won't be announcing those until a little bit closer to Thanksgiving week.
Let us get into the news that happened this week. This is a fairly light week, but we got some interesting things to discuss. The first thing we're going to talk about is, of course, the Activision Blizzard buyout. It was just announced today on Tuesday that the EU is launching a more in-depth probe on the buyout with concerns of anti-competitiveness when it comes to the buyout itself. This is after Sony and Jim Ryan have been sending letters and feelers over to the EU and to other countries and governing bodies about their concerns over Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard and what it could mean for Call of Duty and for the rest of the gaming industry if Call of Duty were to become supposedly exclusive to Xbox at that point. Zero, I mean, this is not really news. We were kind of expecting this, but what are your thoughts on the EU launching a more in-depth probe on the Activision Blizzard buyout?
It's kind of interesting that the EU's probing a little harder because I believe it's Saudi Arabia also kind of came to the same conclusion as Brazil, which was basically telling Sony, hey, get off your ass and leverage your own brands, because Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard and getting a hold of Call of Duty doesn't mean it's the end of the world for you. So kind of interesting that you've got two countries who've kind of ruled against Sony's complaints and everything. And the details, at least in the US, seem hazy. I can't seem to find hide nor hair on if people seem to think that the deal is going to be a slam dunk in the US or not. It's just been really hard to kind of find a definitive answer on that. So it's a bit interesting to see the EU kind of probe a little harder and go, no, we need to investigate this much further. So I'm definitely interested to see how this pans out. because I imagine that there is some sort of breakage clause in case of a third party that isn't either Microsoft or Activision ends up breaking this deal. And I think I've heard some rumors and speculations that the contract stipulates that in the event that a third party breaks up the deal, either through legal processes or regulatory processes, that technically Xbox would get a real sweet payout, somewhere to the tune of like $100 million, which would be one hell of a war chest of money for Microsoft to go and buy up a bunch more studios instead. So,
Yeah.
and I've seen some people speculating and going, yeah, just you would think Sony would be one to not want that sort of a scenario to happen where they can just go waltz around the world with $100 million and start buying up studios that maybe Sony's been a little bit hesitant to make a solid decision on. I've seen some people speculating that the money could be used for some sort of crazy pie in the sky scenario of Microsoft somehow buying out Square Enix.
That would be the ultimate pull your dick out move, and goes, oh yeah, thwap. Final Fantasy VII Remake exclusive to Xbox. But yeah,
yeah, I could just see just people who are overly invested on the Sony camp just losing their minds at a pie in the sky scenario like that.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting in the next few months. Supposedly, the U.S. was this was reported, this has not been a confirmed thing, that by the end of this month, they're going to discuss their thoughts on the Activision Blizzard buyout. And I've said it before, if the U.S. decides it's okay, I think all the other countries and regulating bodies are just going to follow suit and go, okay, well, if the U.S. doesn't care, why should we? And honestly, I am of the opinion that this probably should go through. Even if, and I've even said this before, even if Microsoft decides to take Call of Duty and put it on their consoles only, which more and more I'm thinking is probably not a good move. Even if they did that, EA has Battlefield. Sony can make their own games like that. And Call of Duty, even though it makes blockbuster sales at this point, I mean, it's not every game that makes those blockbuster sales. I mean, Vanguard did not do as well as previous years had. World War II hasn't. Call of Duty Ghosts didn't do very well. It all is contingent on the quality of the game as to whether it makes giant sales. And that's just how it really should be at this point. So I have zero issues with Xbox and Microsoft owning Activision Blizzard. I really don't. To me, I think you mentioned this as well, Sony poking the bear and trying to stop this from happening is just going to make things worse if it turns out that it succeeds. Because if it does succeed, and the regulating bodies go, oh yeah, we can't have this, we're gonna block the sale. Yeah, Sony might be excited and be like be clapping for like a few days, going, oh wow, yeah, we won that one. Until, let's say, Activision Blizzard says, yeah, we're not gonna do anything exclusive with you anymore, or Microsoft then buys a bunch of studios. Like, I don't know if they own Sucker Punch, but if they own Sucker Punch, I can see them saying, okay, let's take one of the studios that they get and we'll just buy them and see how they do from there. Or if they decide, hey, FromSoft, how would you like to be part of the Microsoft brand? Here's $1 billion. Yes, sir. Thank you. That I can see them getting like really catty after this. So I'm of the belief of what we've talked about as well with other people. If this goes down and it doesn't work, I can see this biting Sony in the ass later on down the road. So I think deep down, they should probably hope this goes through. And even if it does, Microsoft has said ad nauseum, we're not making a Call of Duty exclusive. We're not. Minecraft is one of our biggest games that we have on there, and it's not exclusive to any console. We have no problem making it non-exclusive. So, yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand anymore what the deal is. And they could pull it, but even if they do, At this point, I don't care. It's fine. Like they can own it. It's not going to make that big of a deal, especially in a creative medium where a brand new game could outsell an established game if the game is good enough. I mean, seriously, like I'm getting more annoyed by the story than anything now. But because at this point, it's just like, good God, can we just get this over with? But yeah, I'm now of the belief now that this isn't that big of a deal. It should go through, and if it doesn't, it's gonna hurt Sony more than anybody. Because then you're just now making a big multi-billion-dollar company really angry and wanting to spend gobs of money to now price you out of the entire console. So yeah,
I think I'll be interested to see how this concludes out, because honestly, I still stand by my position that it's likely in Sony's best interest to shut the fuck up and just let whatever happen.
Yeah,
because if they push too hard and regulators just go, oh yeah, hey Sony, yeah, you are right, this deal looks bad, we shouldn't do it, and Microsoft then ends up pocketing whatever the third-party breakage clause on their contract is, then that's one hell of a war chest. I mean, we've seen what companies with a large war chest of money can do. I mean, look at Epic with the Epic Store and Tencent giving them a war chest to basically just buy games outright and just go, yeah, only way you can get it is on the Epic Store. And of course, just being able to hold stuff over Steam's head to say, you might be the biggest store, but we've got the one hot meta game that everyone's talking about. So
yeah.
So just Microsoft could easily do the same sort of turnabout play with 100 million or however much money that breakage clause is. I'd have to review that contract again because I think it's publicly available. So, but yeah, I would imagine that there's probably a contingency for a scenario where third-party legal or regulatory processes end up breaking the deal.
I also think that Sony isn't thinking too far ahead in the future here. They're probably thinking right now that Phil Spencer is what you would call, I would say, a weak leader, somebody who does not want to be combative, does not want to fight, does not want to, be somebody that will want to butt heads with other businesses. He would rather be the mediator. He would rather be somebody who wants to collaborate more than compete. And I think they're trying to take advantage of that to a certain extent. Because he is not that type of person, or he's not governing himself as that they're trying to take advantage of that to a certain extent. That does not mean Phil Spencer is going to be in that role for another 10 or 20 years. I could see Phil Spencer, if Xbox gets their act together and gets really good games coming out. What if, if Halo Infinite gets suddenly better, or Fable does incredible sales, or Avowed does really well, or Perfect Dark releases and it becomes fantastic. Phil Spencer is going to want to say, hey, I've done all of this for the Xbox brand. I think it's time for me to move up. And either he decides to move up in Microsoft and takes a higher role, or he steps down and goes somewhere else to get a better job. That's always possible. And then what's the next leader going to do? He's going to do the exact opposite of what Phil Spencer is doing. And he's going to want to be combative. He wants to go for the throat. He wants to go and screw everyone to the ground who went against us. And that will mean to kill Sony and the PlayStation. You're just setting yourself up for that specific thing to happen at that point. I'm betting their belief is, as long as Phil Spencer is the leader on Xbox and the leader of Microsoft in the gaming division, we don't have to worry about them fighting back. They'll want to be too conciliatory. Once you get a new leader there, that all changes. That always changes with new leadership. You very rarely have someone leave and then have a leader come in and say, I'm just going to do exactly what that leader did, and have them succeed. That's bad leadership. That's not going to work. They'll want to put a mark on their time as leader, so they will do something different to differentiate themselves from the other person. Or they'll do what's best for their company, and that might just be to be more combative. So again, yeah, they're poking the bear, and they think they're not going to get bitten when they attack. And I think maybe not now it won't, But as Microsoft becomes a bigger and bigger company in other avenues, it might hurt Sony in the end, big time, especially if new leadership comes up. Let us move on to the next story. EA announced just today that the Codemasters game that was developed by Slightly Mad Studios, a studio that they just purchased recently, I believe, in the past year or so. Am I right on that?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. They announced that the game that they've been working on, the Project Cars series, has now been ended at this point. They are no longer making Project Cars games. This is right after their founder left the studio last month, and after the $1.2 billion acquisition of Codemasters. Yeah, so the founder, of course, had some words to say as to what happened with them ending Project Cars, and his quote from his tweet was, "EA keeping on being awesome. I said my bit, and I stand by every word as they continue to prove them. How are those numbers? People with hopes, dreams, and families, looking at the bottom of those spreadsheets." Basically saying that EA is just looking at them in regards to sales and not thinking of it as an artistic achievement that Project Cars was. Zero, what are their thoughts on EA killing Project Cars?
It's a bit of a sad thing, but honestly, it was kind of one of those things that it was a slow motion train wreck in action. Let's consider the history of the Project Cars series. One came out, and it was one of those games that was trying to promise to be the next car simulator, and it ended up kind of coming off a little bit arcadey, which kind of disappointed some people. So I think it kind of sold okay. And then Project Cars 2 came out, and then that one was a good incremental step towards being more closer to a simulator. So a lot of people were kind of happy with that. So it was just like, hey, that's kind of cool. Just this is a little bit more closer to what we were asking for. So great. And then 3 supposedly went back into the arcade racer direction, which soured a whole bunch of people. So word has been that the sales weren't too good. So, which third game not selling too great naturally means just low sales numbers, which means low revenue, which means just not great profits. So, and with EA being a publicly traded video game company who's always looking for just numbers to go bigger, Project Cars with not producing numbers that they're looking for is just kind of one of those things that it was just a matter of time until EA would just say, all right, so I think we have to kill Project Cars because it's just not meeting our target metrics and everything. So in my eyes, it was just kind of a slow motion train wreck, and just kind of a big question on when were they just going to kill it and just start shifting all the assets around to other projects like the new Need for Speed Unbound game and whatever other racing game projects that EA has in the works currently.
So I'm looking at the sales numbers right now for Project Cars, and this is, of course, VG charts, and they're not the most accurate. So keep that in mind. According to VG charts, with the sales metrics that they have, the total amount shipped when it comes to Project Cars as a series, 2.26 million for the entire series. And apparently 2 million of that is Project Cars. I don't know how accurate that is, to be absolutely honest. But let's favorably say it's 4 million, okay? And that maybe Project Cars is 2 million and the other two are, let's say, 1 million and a half a million, along those lines. Those are still pretty disappointing numbers when it comes to a series, when it comes to a car series where a lot of the quality car games make millions upon millions, like Forza and Gran Turismo. They are behemoths. They're like 7, 8, 9 million each iteration that they do to a certain extent. I'm not entirely sure of the numbers, but they do make a lot of sales. That's why they keep making more of them. And EA, like you mentioned, is a company that does look at the bottom line. They look at how much money do we have to put in to get max amount of profit. I don't think Project Cars really made a lot of sales to make an astounding amount of profit for Codemasters. Because if that were the case, and it did, I don't know what... Well, Codemasters does a lot of racing games, right? They do... What are the... like, didn't they have Dirt and stuff like that as well?
Dirt and the Dirt Rally games were under their purview. The Grid games are under Codemasters now.
Yeah.
The World Rally Championship games that were from another EA studio got moved to Codemasters now. So that's another thing that they do. Gosh,
F1. They have F1, and F1.
Yep, F1 is another one. Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at this and Grid. Grid's another one. They did a Grid one recently. I'm looking at these, and I'm seeing these games: Dirt Rally, Dirt, Grid, F1. Like, I see these games moving forward because they sell, and they've made quality iterations of these games in the past. Whereas Project Cars, I think 2 was considered the best. And even then, it wasn't great, but it was good. So people were like, "Yeah, it's fine, I guess." I guess that is what they would pretty much say. I would be concerned if it was F1 or Dirt were the ones that were being shit canned. Not so much with Project Cars. They're just looking at these racing games and going, well, Need for Speed makes more money than any of them, of course. But with these other games like Dirt, Grid, and F1, they do sell, every time they do an iteration, they do great in sales. So let's put more money into those. And then this little game that didn't really live up to its potential, why don't we put that to the wayside? And maybe one day we'll get back to it, but honestly, they probably aren't. And that was it. And honestly, that's a sound business decision at that point. Unless they are doing something that essentially will say, oh, this will change the game. If we stick with this, we can do something that will do something very different in racing. I think this is the right move on EA. I'm not somebody who likes praising EA all that much, but in this circumstance, I mean, if I had the choice between F1, Grid, Dirt, and the other Codemasters games, I think that Project Cars would be the one I'd shit can to. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same mind. Just the other stuff like Dirt, F1, and Grid just have generally gotten better with the further iterations, and just Project Cars has unfortunately had kind of an iffy record. So just with it having an iffy record, that potentially shows risk, and well, we all know EA is real risk averse, so that's just one of the reasons that, at least in my mind, I kind of saw just Project Cars being put on the chopping block as kind of a eventuality. It was not a matter of if, it was more a matter of when.
Project Cars 3 was released in 2020. Okay? Here is the games that came out in the last year with Codemasters. Okay, in the last 2 years. F1 22, Grid Legends, F1 21, Dirt 5, F1 2020. I've heard these games get better reviews than Project Cars 3 did. It sucks, but I don't think anyone's losing their job, which is good. I don't think they would buy the studio and then shit can everybody for a bunch of IP that they're not going to use. They're probably going to be a support studio right now for, let's say, I don't know, Codemasters or for Need for Speed. Or maybe they'll work on something different. I don't know. I don't see them continuing Project Cars as a good thing if it wasn't getting the sales that they would have expected to get. And it was not because of the game. It was mainly because the quality wasn't up to what other people wanted in racing games. And with Forza at that point was still doing a Forza Motorsport, and then a Horizon, and then people were looking forward to Gran Turismo. Grid was still coming out. Like, there were still options. And when there are still options and they're choosing not to play those games, why continue it unless you have something outstanding that will blow the competition away, which didn't look like they had? I think this is the right move.
Yeah, and to clarify with the history of Slightly Mad Studios, it was in November of 2019 that Codemasters bought them up.
Oh,
And then
okay.
after that happened, February 2021, Codemasters was then bought up by Electronic Arts.
It is sad when, because I know there are fans of Project Cars. I know there's not many of them, but I think even those people will say that 3 was kind of a disappointment at this point. So even if like there were fans of Project Cars, they probably are also saying, yeah, it probably there's other games to play, whatever at this point. And with 1 and 2 now unavailable for sale, 3 will probably be there soon as well, probably in the next year. They probably will stop selling 3 because of contract issues. So yeah, like, this is going to be a franchise that will no longer exist, essentially. You won't be able to play it. You won't be able to do anything with it at a certain point, which sucks. But again, that's the nature of the business at this point. If you're not producing, if you're producing a quality game that people who play it actually enjoy, I could possibly see EA saying, you know what, if we put more money into this, this might get bigger. But then you're also got to remember too, EA has a classic, beloved arcade racing franchise in Burnout that they do nothing with. So if Burnout has no chance, I don't think Project Cars has much of a chance either in this. So on our next story here, after the podcast was finished last week, we weren't able to include this story, so we're going to talk about it this week. And that's basically that metrics started showing up about PlayStation Plus and their subscriber count after the revamp of their PlayStation Plus service. This is where they revamped PlayStation Plus into 3 different tiers, which is I think it was Essential, Extra, and Ultimate, if I'm correct on that.
Premium.
Premium, thank you. So they revamped them into 3 tiers, offering different types of services. In the Extra, I think it was more of a Game Pass kind of thing, where they would have different types of games that you can get with the subscription. And then the Premium allowed you to play old school PlayStation games as well with that Premium thing. Well, after the initial sales of that revamp, it looks as if that PlayStation Plus has lost 2 million subscribers after its revamp in June. Zero, what are your thoughts on PlayStation Plus losing all the subscribers right after the revamp?
It's a bit funny because for the sake of the podcast and for just investigative purposes, I decided to go ahead and do the premium upgrade for my account.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just they talked a huge game on, we're going to really revisit the PlayStation vintage catalog, and we're going to make more digital stuff available for people to play on PS5 and everything. And just after a lot of huffing and puffing about it, they don't really have much to show for it. I think really the only significant update that happened recently was a bunch of PS3 Ratchet and Clank games got put on to celebrate the Ratchet and Clank anniversary last week. And since then, there hasn't been any major talks or announcements on what's on the horizon in the future, or any further progress on them working on the PlayStation 3 emulation to be actually native on the PS5 system versus the PS3 emulation being farmed out to the cloud. So just they haven't done really much to really make good on the whole. We value our legacy. We want to really show that we care about the long legacy that the PlayStation brand has. And to play devil's advocate in Sony's favor, maybe it's because some of the PlayStation games that they want to put on the service are things that might have some sort of licensing holdup. So maybe that's the issue. I don't know. I'm not someone who works for Sony or knows anybody who works at Sony, but maybe that could be the cause. I don't know, but there's just been a lot of radio silence. This whole this whole cloud emulation thing for PlayStation 3 being shifted to actual local emulation on the PS5. No further announcements on, hey, we're going to be bringing the next batch of PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games to the PlayStation Plus Premium tier. Just no sort of talk on any of that. And it's just a really disappointing show for something that they were touting as one of the big reasons to make the upgrade. And even though I paid for the upgrade out of my own pocket for investigative purposes, even I kind of feel cheated out of my money, to be honest.
Yeah.
The other part, I think, likely is a factor on why the numbers on subscribers were dropping is they decided to make the ability to play PlayStation games through the PlayStation Now service. They decided to bundle that in with PlayStation Plus Ultimate. And previously, you had people who were more than happy to just keep a PlayStation Now subscription, even though they may not have owned a PlayStation 4 to play some of the games and stuff like that. Now, basically holding that potential thing hostage behind a PlayStation Ultimate subscription, instead of converting those people who were more than happy to just remain as PlayStation Now customers, they've just gone and said, "Fuck this! I don't care anymore. I'm not gonna continue on with this. I'll just play my PlayStation Now account until it runs out of time, and once it does, I'm through. I'm no longer going to really mess around with PlayStation stuff anymore." So that was another failure on their part to account for some people who might not really have a need for PlayStation Plus Ultimate. Maybe they were just perfectly fine with being PlayStation Now customers, and instead of being able to retain those people, now those people are completely lost to them, and all due to the fact that they weren't going to make the conversion. Another potential loss by Sony there, and in my mind, that kind of speaks to Sony just sort of overplaying their hand.
Sony was in a bind in the beginning as well. I mean, when we talked about this before it was released, we weren't really impressed with what they were giving us in the beginning. And that's a problem, because if you're the second one out of the gate, you're expected to you're not just do as well as the first person who's doing it. You have to do it better in order to get the sales. And they're not even matching the quality of Game Pass at this point, is my opinion at least, when it comes to the two services. Bear in mind also that the UI to look up everything on the PlayStation 5 is pretty bad. So if you want to look at what games are available, you have to do a lot of digging in order to do that too. And that's the same thing on their app as well. Their app is terrible as well when it comes to searching for games and looking for things that you're interested in, or looking at sales at that point as well. What they've offered as well is not very hot either. That's been the other issue. And the other thing that I think that I don't think anyone really put into consideration is the PlayStation library, PS1, PS2, that people would actually want to play and go back to. Most of these games are games that I think companies know that you want to go back to those games and would rather resell them to you instead of put them on a service like that. Like, if you would have had, I don't know, Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy Anthology, like a bunch of other Square Enix games, Romancing Saga, or Saga Frontier 2, if you had those games on there, you probably would have had a lot of people saying, "Oh, God, I remember those games. I'd love to play them again." But Square Enix knows that, and since they know that, they would rather sell it to you for $50 again with a whole bunch of special features. And it's only until, I guess, after those things go to the wayside is when they will then put it on that service. So I think that was the other problem. I mean, with Nintendo specifically, well, Nintendo also sells that service for dirt cheap. So the pricing is fine for what they're offering. So, like, if you pay $20 a year, you get NES and Super NES games you can play through the cloud for free on that. Or if you want to pay $60, you get N64. Okay? Was it $18 a month for PS1, PS2, PS3, and PSP? And they don't offer much, and what they offer isn't that great. So what are you expecting at that point then? Like, if you're not offering something that people want to play, at that point, I don't understand why you would expect them to actually upgrade to the services. I am shocked that they lost subscribers, because them mentioning that PlayStation Plus lost subscribers means that they tuned out the entire service. They didn't just go from, oh, well, I'll get off of extra or premium and go back to basic. They didn't do that. They literally said, oh, fuck this, I'm done. That's essentially what they said. So I guess that's the other problem, too, that if you put that tier system out there and you don't make it viable enough to say, hey, it's worth getting it, you'll be dumb for you not to, and then someone says, well, no, that's dumb. I'm not going to pay $18 for this, but then you're going to expect me to pay $60 a year for something that I feel I'm not getting enough of? Like, that's going to have people tune out, I guess is what happened. I think that's what shocks me. If the story was people downgraded from premium extra to basic, or to, essential, they knocked themselves down to essential after a month, then I would have been like, yeah, I can understand that. That's not a big deal. But them actually saying, no, I'm out of PlayStation Plus entirely, that surprises me. That surprises me to a certain extent. And I would love to know, I would love to speak to some of these people and ask, why did you get out of the service altogether after this? That's what I'm curious about.
And just the point that you've made about just people just completely checking out from just even PlayStation Plus in general, that is probably a bigger sign of issues because of the fact that they didn't just like you said, just downgrade and say, okay, well, I was on PlayStation Plus Premium for a month, it really didn't make it worth my while, I'll just bump myself back down to essential, no big deal.
Right.
But instead people just checked right the hell out. That is something that speaks to a bit of a larger issue, and we all know that companies like Microsoft and Sony really, really, really care about the retention numbers and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine with this drop in users, whoever is in charge of the PlayStation Plus department probably has all the alarm bells going off. There's probably executives probably knocking down on that person's door going, yo, what the fuck is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And what the fuck is your plan to save this?
Right.
I imagine it's probably code red, all hands on deck. You guys better figure this the fuck out and figure out why people are quitting, because this is not what we want.
So what do you think is the reason that they lost the subscribers? Is this a bigger PlayStation issue? Like, is this an issue with the console that people maybe aren't happy with? Or is this or do you think this is specifically to the service?
Personally, I think it's just the service. I mean, on the multiplayer side, just anyone who's serious about multiplayer games, they're probably just maintaining at least the essential level of service, because they're probably just like, well, I can't play Call of Duty Online without the multiplayer, so guess I'll keep on paying for PlayStation Plus to ensure I can get into multiplayer games. So that camp's already spoken for. But it's the people that are in between those that are just like, I just bought my PS5 for single player games and unique games from Japan that don't have any sort of online connectivity, so just I don't need Plus. And then between that camp and the hardcore multiplayer junkies where they're just like, I have to have one of the tiers of PlayStation Plus to enable me to get online and play online stuff. There's that middle camp that might occasionally play multiplayer stuff, but also maybe value some of the unique single player experiences that PS5 can provide. That's the camp that they need to figure out why they're leaving, because I imagine most people who are leaving are right in that middle camp. And honestly, in my opinion, I think it's just the fact that PlayStation Plus right now is just a bad value proposition, and just the tier system just makes it all the more confusing. Whereas with Microsoft and the whole Xbox Game Pass thing. Before that, I mean, you had the regular Game Pass tier and then the Game Pass Ultimate tier, but I know Microsoft has been pushing towards a idea of trying to get people to upgrade up to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate because it's kind of a all-in-one thing. There's no confusion. Everything's clearly detailed on what you get for your 15.99 plus tax where applicable price per month, with all the bonuses, perks, and services that you get with that. So I think honestly, maybe Sony needs to go back to the board, reevaluate everything, and maybe try to streamline things, but also give the PlayStation gamers something that shows that the money that they're paying for the PlayStation Plus Premium membership is worth the money, that it's not just a kind of desperate attempt to say, hey, look, we're doing Game Pass things too, because just trying to meet the bare minimum of Game Pass is not going to be enough for Sony to kind of maintain a lead in the long run, because I think in the long run, Xbox has the advantage, especially with the value proposition that Game Pass provides.
Yeah. I think this is a repudiation on everything Sony's been doing right now. I think Sony and the PlayStation 5 have a lot of issues that I think people have essentially stopped talking about or don't acknowledge that is starting to bear fruit at this point. First off, the whole thing about Game Pass that is exciting to everybody is that first-party Microsoft games are available day one, and people will buy Game Pass for that alone at most points. Even when there's nothing coming out that month, they'll still keep that Game Pass because, I'll get the Xbox exclusives, but I also get all these other games too, so that's fine. If you're not offering that, something that will be a linchpin for a lot of people to, like let's say God of War Ragnarok was available day one on that pass, I think everyone would get that pass. Be like, I would be stupid not to. Like, that would be a perfect way for them to say, oh, and guess what? It's on our pass. It's on PlayStation Plus. I think people would snatch that immediately and would want that. So automatically, Microsoft has one better on you on that one. The second thing also is with the PlayStation 5, okay? I don't know if you've had issues with your PlayStation 5, but I've had a lot of issues with my PlayStation 5, and I know other people have as well. I've had my PlayStation 5 crash and have to repopulate and reformat my PlayStation 5 about twice since I've had it. I now have an issue where if I have a external USB drive and I stick it into the PlayStation 5, and this wasn't in the beginning, but now if I have an external USB drive and I stick it into my PlayStation 5, it freezes the PlayStation completely until I unplug the drive, and then the PlayStation runs just fine. You also have, so there's a bunch of technical issues that are still not ironed out yet. You also have UI issues. The UI, looks clean, but if you're searching for a game, it takes way too long to find it. So, I have a ton of games on my PlayStation, okay? I bought a lot of games on PlayStation 4 last generation. I barely bought any Xbox One games. So if I'm looking for a game, it is a pain in the ass to find it. And then on top of that, the store is not well done, like I mentioned in the beginning. The store is not very well maintained either. Searching for new games, searching for specific games, DLC, it's clunky. And if you want to find out what's new on the service, you have to go to 3 or 4 different screens in order to do that. So if you have to do all these things just to know what kind of value you have, people are going to think that, there's no value in this because they're not showing me the value. I think PlayStation and Sony need to look at their systems right now. And first off, iron out all the problems. Get rid of those technical problems. And then redo the UI. For the PlayStation 4, it was fine, I guess. But even then, I wasn't thrilled with the PS4 when it came to its UI. But to then basically do the same UI, but maybe a little cleaner, but make it a little more clunkier, didn't work well with me on this generation. And I know people praise the PS5 for its controller, but the controller can only be so good that the controller is not going to help when your UI stinks and your store is clunky to go through and you don't know how to search for your games. They have a ton of issues they have to iron out. And I think the main thing they have to start in the beginning is work on the backbone of the system itself and then rework the UI so that you can predominantly showcase that tier, because that's what Xbox does. I'm not entirely a fan of the Xbox UI, but the UI on the Xbox is a lot better because they have their own. Oh, you want Game Pass? Okay, press down. There it is, Game Pass. Oh, pressing the Game Pass button. Here are all the games you can get. Oh, okay, cool. You can't do that on PlayStation. You have to go in the store, let it load, go to subscriptions, let it load. Oh, here is the PlayStation subscription. Do you want it? Okay, what's in the PlayStation subscription? Okay, click on this one. Let it load. Here are these games. Is that it? No, there's these games. Okay, click on this. Let it load. If you give them too many options to back out, they're going to back out. You have to make it like immediately available to see what is good about your service. If you can't do that, no one's going to buy it at this point. What do you think?
Yeah, and to your point about the system being a little bit clunky and kludgy, one of the big things that I have issues with right now is the USB hard drive that I have in my PS5 right now is a tiny little Samsung 500 gig SSD that I have plugged in via USB port, which it's great if I want to transfer stuff between my PS5 and the external hard drive and everything, because the SSDs are pretty quick. Problem is that poor little SSD has filled up in space. And the PlayStation 5 right now only recognizes one external hard drive. That's right, one single drive.
Ugh.
Whereas my Series X has two hard drives plugged into it. One of them was a 2 terabyte hard drive that's been with me since my Xbox One, and then a 4 terabyte drive that I've been trying to slowly move all my stuff over so I can just make the former 2 terabyte drive into a PlayStation 5 storage drive. Well, the problem is that in theory, if I were to clean off everything from the 2 terabyte drive and then plug it into the PS5 is just going to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can only read and access one drive only." So either you need to disconnect the 500 gig SSD and plug in this new drive, and we'll get to formatting it, and then you can re-download all your stuff again, or you can keep that 500 gig SSD in a USB enclosure, and that'll be that. And there's no option to have multiple drives and just manage the multiple drives between which files you want on the externals and which ones that you want to transfer to the actual PlayStation 5 NVMe SSDs. So it's a real pain in the ass right now, because I'm just kind of in sort of like this bit of a proverbial situation of, okay, well, if I want space to store a lot of the PS4 games that I want to be able to access every once in a while when I've got the whim to play some PS4 digital stuff, or if I want to just store off some stuff that I might come back to later on when I decide to play them again and they're PS5 games, then it's either, hey, I guess I can use this 500 gig SATA SSD for my PlayStation 5 stuff and just have that for rapid transfer, but in order to use that, then I'd have to disconnect the 2 terabyte, and then vice versa. So real pain in the ass, whereas the Xbox can manage multiple drives, and hell, you can even point to which drive you want certain stuff to be stored on. So if you're just like, hey, if my internal NVMe SSD in my Xbox Series X fills up, then use this 1 terabyte SATA SSD that I've got plugged in via USB for like overflow storage. And if you're doing downloads for like Xbox One games or other vintage Xbox games, then you can point those to use like an 8 terabyte storage drive or something. Just there's so many things that Microsoft gets right with just how the Xbox is set up, and Sony, with as nice and as powerful as their hardware is, it's like their software is just so behind. And on top of that, just add into your point about just the UI just being real kludgy to just kind of find your games and stuff like that. I think it wasn't until like a recent update that they added the ability to make folders on PS5. And it was one of those things that kind of had me scratching my head. I was just like, wasn't this a feature you guys added to the PS4 late in the life cycle? How the hell did PS5 not have this feature right from the get-go?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's terrible. And I think, honestly, Sony, in all intents and purposes, on every aspect of the console and of their business plan, came into this like they did in the PS3 and said, we own the freaking market. We don't gotta do much with these idiots. We got a shiny new controller. They're gonna eat that shit up, yo. And they've essentially have governed themselves as such. And since Xbox is not doing too hot, they've kind of gotten away with it. But this is going to change. If Xbox has a very good year next year, I mean, I think that could decimate Sony to a certain extent. That could kill their sales and subscriptions to a certain extent. So yeah, they need to improve on every aspect of their business, and soon, before it starts to affect their bottom line in a big way. I mean, there's already rumors that they're remaking Horizon Zero Dawn for some reason. And even people who are fans of that game are like, why? Why are you remaking that game? That's weird. Like, they are becoming, I would say they're becoming like EA, where they're looking at what can make us the most money with the least amount of effort, and we'll do that. And they're doing that on top of that as well. They need a big shakeup with their philosophy. And if they don't do it they don't do it soon, they're going to find themselves in a whole lot of trouble. I mean, this has been going on for, I don't know, it's like 2018, I would say, with them pulling out of doing press conferences in E3, from them doing like a lot of anti-consumer practices, remakes of games that didn't need remakes. Like, they've been doing this for a while now. To me, this is more indicative of them not offering a lot to people who have PlayStations. People are looking at my assumption is people who left, these 2 million that left, are saying, all right, fuck Sony, because they're not offering me a damn thing to stay on their console. And either I'm going to PC or I'm going to Xbox, because this is bullshit. That's my feeling of what happened on this.
I will clarify and say this is not us just kind of just shitting on Sony just to say that we can. I think I can speak for Wiz as well that we do want to see competition in the market. We do want to see PlayStation put a better foot forward to say, hey, we can hang with Game Pass. We can compete. We can show consumers that there is value in the PlayStation 5 ecosystem. There is value in the PlayStation Plus premium subscription. But yeah, I think they've just gotten too fat, complacent, and lazy and gone, hey, we basically own the market right now. Just everyone's playing PlayStation stuff. What's there to worry about? There's no reason to panic or worry. Just we can take our sweet, sweet time. And as with all things, if you say fat, lazy, and complacent, someone's just going to go and upend you. And once they upend you, it may be too late to recover. So I would like to see PlayStation put a better foot forward. Maybe start taking a really hard look on what they're doing wrong, and maybe kind of fess up and go, maybe we need to be a little bit more competitive. Maybe we need to offer a better value proposition. Maybe we need to do something to show gamers who are questioning the value of PlayStation Plus Premium that, we want to make it worth their while.
I think step one is to just get rid of Extra, Make it a 2-tier system and premium's $15 a month. That would be my thing. There is no reason why extra should be 15, and that's your Game Pass. But then for some reason your older games are extra, because Xbox has older games on their Game Pass, and it's just $15. Like, I don't understand why you think you can charge more for your older games, but Xbox seems to think that it's not that necessary. Well, it's $15, whatever. I think that's one error that they made on that end. But yeah, I think they need a complete philosophy overhaul on their side, and if they don't do it soon, yeah, you're gonna see Xbox come back like they did in the 360 after Sony screwed up on the PS3, and just get a bigger foothold in the market again. And this is at a time now where if they gain a foothold, Sony may not get it back. So they need to do something now. Let's move on to the next story. Zero. E3 is about 7 months away. Hey, aren't you excited? Yeah. All right. Why are we talking about E3? We're talking about E3 for one reason, really, and it's just as a curiosity at this point. E3 is coming back, but just announced today, the PC Gamer announced today that they're doing a second PC gaming show this year. It's on November 17th, and it's a 2023 PC gaming show preview. Let's see, and it will be 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on November 17th. Is that a Sunday? That's a Thursday. Okay. That'll be on a Thursday at 1 p.m. That's an odd time. Yeah, that's weird. So they've already announced that some games are being shown. I don't think they've talked about how long the game this thing is going to be. But the fact that they are making a big push and they're doing a second one of these throughout the year is interesting. So, Zero, my question really is this, okay? What do you think about PC Gaming Show doing a second show this year? And is this something that maybe the ECA should do as well in the future?
It's a bit interesting to see doing another sort of trade show. I think really the reason I can kind of see them doing a second show is that we recently had NVIDIA reveal the 4000 series cards with the 4090 and the 4080 16 gig and the now recalled 4080 12 gig card. So there was that. And then also you have, as of last week, AMD revealed the new Radeon 7000 series cards with the new 7900 series cards, which I think it's the 7900 XTX, which is the top card, and then the 7800 XT being the second tier cards. So just you have those being recently announced, which those are kind of the competing cards to match up with the 4090 and the 4080 16 gig. So it'll be interesting to see if there are any further hardware announcements in the next couple weeks. But I think this show is more to kind of highlight maybe some of the gaming peripherals and gaming parts that will be coming out, and then any new games that might be leveraging those technologies. Like I think FSR 3.0 is coming out for the new the new Radeon cards. And then, of course, you've got the new RTX ray tracing technology coming out on the 4000 series cards. So maybe you've got some games leveraging that technology too. The PC Gamer page that talks about the 2023 preview show also mentions that they'll be showing off Kerbal Space Program 2, a brand new game from League of Geeks, the guys and gals behind Armello and the reboot of Solium Infernum, Shadows of Doubt, The Great War Western Front, and then a top 5 most wanted games panel of 2023 as selected by PC Gamer. So those are the segments that they'll be doing. So I wouldn't put it past the event to have some sort of highlight of, hey, did you know this game is going to take advantage of AMD's FSR 3.0 technology? Or, hey, look at this game. It runs great on a 4090 from all that ray tracing. Look at these God rays. Oh, geez. You're going to be blinded by these God rays or whatever.
Yeah. So you think this is mainly to do with the fact that Nvidia is pulling out new cards around the same time, and they want to? And I guess Nvidia is maybe putting money aside for them to put more press into it. So maybe that's why this is going on. You don't think
Both NVIDIA and AMD
Okay.
to kind of show off their new graphics cards.
So you don't think this is 'cause my thought process was this is PC Gamer, I guess, recognizing that people desire these things more, and if you give more of these type of conferences throughout the year, you can get more views this way. So I think, and this is also timed pretty well because this is what 2 weeks before the or 3 or 4 weeks before the Game Awards. So they're doing it at I would say, a good time where I would say people would think this is kind of like an E3 for December, essentially November, December time frame. So I think this is becoming what PC Gamer is trying to, I guess, establish itself as. They're going to be, they probably aren't doing very well with the sales of their magazine. They're probably not getting not a lot of clicks on their site. But by doing this, they can still maintain their business, and they've seen that they've gotten a lot of eyeballs and advertising through the gaming show. So they decided then, okay, then why don't we do a second one? And we'll do it around X time. And they'll get the stuff that maybe the Game Awards won't get, and it'll be PC-centric, and then that's good. I mean, I think this is a business strategy, and I think it's a sound one, too. I think this is a good idea on their part. Because if they look at the metrics and they're seeing that, oh wow, a lot of people really want to see more of these things, and look at how much that, I don't know, when Nintendo does their stuff, how much clicks they get or whatever, or Sony State of Play. If they're doing a lot of clicks and they're not even putting advertising in it, we can put advertisements in ours, get a lot of money that way, and that will provide another big business point to us. And I think this is not a bad idea. So much so that I think maybe the ESA with E3 might want to think about this. And they'll still have their trade show for June, where everyone comes to the physical trade show and do their thing. But let's say, I don't know, in like December. Or maybe they start hosting the Game Awards. Maybe they do the Game Awards. And they partner with Jeff Keighley and do that, or some reason. Or, God forbid, they do something similar where they have their own the E3 stream for November 2023, and they do a little mini E3 in between the PC Gaming Show and the Game Awards. That's not a bad idea, and it might help with dues too. So, I don't know. I see this as a good business opportunity, and I think more people will want to see this as well. So this might also cut back on some companies doing their own streams if it's successful. But anyway, people like to have announcements condensed into 2 hours or 1 hour or 1 hour and a half or whatever. They like that. They like to be bombarded with advertisements within a certain period of time to get excited. So I see this as a good business opportunity and a very good idea on their part. So I'm all for this, unless this, of course, crashes and burns, which, could be something that happens. It is the PC Gaming Show, of course, so that's a possibility. But yeah, I think this is not a bad idea on their end.
Especially since this will be a bit more of a dedicated PC event. So anyone who's more kind of involved on the PC gaming space will be able to go, hey, this is our event to focus mostly on just games that will be on PC. So your real-time strategy games, your MOBAs and whatevers, and any potential big releases too that are also coming to PC. And I mean, I wouldn't put it past this 2023 preview that there's going to be some big label game there, and be it if they're partnering up with either AMD or Nvidia, you're going to see either FSR 3.0 if it's an AMD sponsored game, or you're going to see RTX, the new RTX technologies being shown off and everything. So I wouldn't put it past either or both Nvidia or AMD to show some of the new technologies that their graphics cards are doing and everything. So.
Yeah.
Great way to kind of remind people, hey, by the way, we've got new graphics cards. They're coming up for sale soon. So
Yeah.
I also see it kind of being a potentially glorified commercial for both graphic card brands.
Right. No, I can definitely see that too. I just think business-wise, and when it comes to, because these streams have now become a business within themselves at a certain point. Like, especially with, let's say, the Game Awards and with Opening Night Live and E3, to have more of them is not such a bad thing. You may not get the big three. You may not get Microsoft, Sony, or Nintendo, but you can get plenty of smaller studios, or maybe even Ubisoft, if they're not going to do a stream anytime soon, to advertise new things that are coming out on their game. So, unless it's proven otherwise, it's not necessary. Why not at this point? Give it a shot and see how it goes. I think this will go well for the PC gaming show, especially since they weren't as cringe as they were in years past. Not as cringe. They're still cringe, but they're not as bad. Well, we are at the end of the episode, but before we go, Zero, I have a question for you.
All right.
In the next couple of weeks, we're going to hear the announcements for the nominees for the Game Awards. And the Game Awards, I believe the Game Awards is going to be December 8th. So that's going to be Thursday, December 8th. And they're going to have their nominees, I would hope soon, but apparently it might be till the end of the month, which I think is a little strange. So my question simply is this, Zero. Who do you think will get nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards this year?
Part of me jokes about this, but part of me is kind of half serious on this. I potentially see Elden Ring just sweeping the shit out of everything.
Okay. So you definitely think Elden Ring is getting nominated?
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with you. I think Elden Ring...
Well, nominated and likely to sweep most of the awards for the game and for the Game Awards and everything.
So you don't think the buzz for God of War Ragnarok might not supplant that?
Not really.
Okay.
Mostly because Ragnarok does a lot of things that are... that iterate on the God of War reboot back on PS4. So it's not going to be seen as revolutionary or anything like that. Whereas Elden Ring, the buzz that it got just earlier this year, and just, oh my god, it's a revolution in the whole like Dark Souls style game. Oh my god, it's so good. Story is great. All this other stuff. So I potentially just see Elden Ring as being the game that just sweeps the entire Game Awards.
I agree with you. I think it will get nominated. I think it will essentially just win everything at this point. So I do agree with you on that point as well. What else do you think will get nominated? I'm talking about nominations. I'm not talking about who you think will win. I'm talking about who you think will get nominated. And just so we are clear, the nominations from last year were about six of them. So why don't we stick with six games that you think will get nominated for best game this year?
Okay. God of War, if it came out, or if it was considered within the timeline, that one is probably going to be maybe one of the nominees.
Mm-hmm. I mean, God of War got to the critics before then, so I think it does count. I agree with you. Elden Ring will get nominated. I think God of War Ragnarok will get nominated. I think Horizon Forbidden West will get nominated, even though people cooled on that pretty quick. And that's mainly because Elden Ring came out around the same time. So that, I think, is part of the reason why.
Yeah.
I think Vampire Survivors will get nominated for Game of the Year.
Yeah. I mean, that one was kind of an indie darling and everything, so I could definitely see that. This one might be a little bit on the niche end of things, but maybe Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Okay. Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Yeah, because that one ended up being a pretty solid game.
Okay.
Good open world design, great music. A little bit heavy on the anime for anyone and who likes the anime stuff. So people who hate anime may not agree, but I think maybe one of the past Game Awards, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was nominated for some stuff. So that's kind of the reason I say Xenoblade Chronicles 3 might make it on to this year's charts and everything.
Okay. I said Elden Ring, God of War, Vampire Survivors, Horizons Forbidden West. I think Tunic will get nominated. I think
Oh yeah, as an indie game, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I think best game of the year. We're just talking about game of the year. We're not talking about indie game. If we go through everything, we'll be here for another 2 hours.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we're just gonna go through game of the year. The critic reception for that game was really, really good. And unless critics are a lot like the Oscars, where they forget movies that came out in the beginning of the year, I think Tunic will get some Game of the Year nominations. I originally thought maybe Neon White, but I think Tunic would probably be the one that gets it, on top of Vampire Survivors. See, here's the thing. I'm looking at a lot of the games that came out this year and the critic responses, and they're solid, but they're not, like, huge. The only ones that really got great critic reception is Elden Ring and God of War. Like, those are the only two that are, like, solid that are going to get nominated. The rest are kind of up in the air. Like, and the reason why I'm going through critic reception is because critics are the ones who basically are being polled as to who should get nominated. So it's not like I'm saying, like, oh, they know what's best. They are the people who are going to be deciding on who's being nominated, and essentially who will win. So it would be smart to look at the critic response to see what they think are the best games this year.
Stray might get a nomination. I feel like.
You think Stray will get best game?
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly, because I know that one was one that got a lot of real positive buzz when it came out.
I think my sixth and final game that I think will get nominated for best game of the year is Immortality, the Sam Barlow game that came out this past year.
Yeah.
I mean, Sam Barlow games, like, except for Telling Lies, they get an inordinate amount of critical praise. I mean, big amount of praise. Her Story got so much praise that between me and you, Zero, it didn't deserve it. it was a Google machine game. I mean, and the story was okay at best. You kind of overrated this a little, guys. Just saying. But yeah, I think here are my 6. Okay, Elden Ring, God of War, Ragnarok, locks. I think Vampire Survivors is a lock. The 3 I think can be switched around, but I think are going to get in there are Tunic, Horizon Forbidden West, and Immortality. I think those are going to be the 6 nominees, in my opinion. Okay. Now, could The Last of Us Part 1 get nominated? Probably. And if it does, I'll just be like, good Lord. But yeah, so far you have Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and Stray.
I think I'll be in agreement with you that Vampire Survivors is likely another solid lock. So,
okay.
So the first 3 are on par and the same with yours, and I think the only I think I still have just one more slot.
Yeah, one more.
This one is just going to be a total joke one, just to kind of just put some levity into this list of things. Bayonetta 3.
You know what? A part of me wanted to say it because I don't know. Okay, again, this is the critics who are going to do this. I see Bayonetta 3 getting fan game of the year just to spite that woman, essentially. And because just for that reason alone. And then I'll piss myself if Jennifer Hale gets Best Actor. I will piss myself if she gets Best Actress in the Game Awards. But I don't.
That's right. They do have a voice acting category,
Yep.
so yeah, that would be absolutely hilarious. If Bayonetta, if it's just like Jennifer Hale is Bayonetta in Bayonetta 3, that would just send me into stitches. Holy shit!
Oh, that would be. Oh God. And the announcers, and this goes to the true Bayonetta, Jennifer Hale. Like, oh my God.
Ooh.
Anyway, okay, so your 6 is Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Stray, Vampire Survivors, and Bayonetta 3.
Yeah.
Okay, my 6 are Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Vampire Survivors, Tunic, Horizon Forbidden West, Immortality. I agree with you. I think Elden Ring will probably win this. I think it's a slam dunk. They're going to win this. I can see Vampire Survivors getting nominated for Best Indie Game and winning that.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the game. Just Vampire Survivors just got so much love this entire year.
Oh, yeah.
And I think even more so the fact that originally it was just a one dev effort for the most part before they got just everyone sort of involved, because I think Stephanie Sterling is now involved on writing all the lore encyclopedia entries for all the enemies and everything.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. So I know the team for Vampire Survivors has gotten a bit larger over the last couple months, but yeah, as far as like indie game of the year, I could easily see just Vampire Saviors just taking it.
Right, and that's a good story too, because I thought Tunic was a game that was in development for a long time, right? And that was from a one developer person, if I recall correctly. Am I right on that?
I think so. I'm not 100% familiar with Tunic's backstory.
Yeah, apparently it's only credited to one developer, Andrew Scholdice, and the Tunic team. So he may have had help. But yeah, it's an action-adventure game developed by Andrew Scholdice. So that's a one-person team. And it's been in development for 7 years. I still think Vampire Survivors will get nominated, but I'm comfortable with my list. I think Tunic will end up on there. For some reason, I just see Horizon Forbidden West being there, even though the talk around that game died quick. If it didn't get nominated and it turns out to be Bayonetta 3, it won't surprise me at all. But I think that's what's going to end up happening. And then just Immortality is just a critical catnip game. It's just a game that critics adored. And since it's Sam Barlow, he gets an inordinate amount of praise. And that's it. That's just how it is. And they'll get nominated. He'll probably get Best Narrative. And then that will be it with that one. But yeah. Again, nominees. 0 things. It's Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Stray, Vampire Survivors, and Bayonetta 3, with Elden Ring winning. And I think it's going to be Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Vampire Survivors, Tunic, Horizon Forbidden West, and Immortality, with Elden Ring winning. So good?
Yeah, sounds good to me. But yeah, I swear, I will fucking piss myself laughing if Bayonetta 3 shows up in like the best voice acting category. I swear to God, I will piss myself.
It will. I think Jennifer Hale, when she's in a game, gets nominated every year. So it will. And after the controversy throughout the year, it will definitely get nominated. Like, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So that will not surprise me if that happens. In fact, I will essentially guarantee it will happen. The question is when she gets nominated, if she wins. Because then if she wins, oh Lord, are we going to hear from Helena Taylor after that? Like, I am Bayonetta, and I never got nominated for a game award. Ah! And I would pay to see that, actually. That would be funny. But, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, might have to make a bingo card for this year's Game Awards.
Well, let's see. Helena Taylor freak out. Elden Ring wins. Bingo. All right, everyone. Well, that is it for this episode of the Capital Games Podcast. Tune in next week. We talk about the going-ons and happenings of the video game industry. I'm The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
And we'll talk to you next week. Bye.